skat.
Kom over til mig, Kulle.
1, 2, 3. Så kommer du over til dig. Hej, hej. Hej, hej.
Sidste kys, luftkys.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rebecca Martin. I am the founder of Cinema Femme, also the festival director of our Cinema Femme showcases. Today, I'm so excited. I'm going to be talking to Katrine Weber. She is the recipient of our Phenomenal Woman Award for our February showcase. The reason why I chose Katrine is because I'm just very inspired by her work. She's a documentarian, and she's just very passionate about bringing these real stories to the screen. Very excited to be talking to her about her road to filmmaking and her work. So yeah, Katrina, please join me and we'll get into the discussion. Hi there.
Hi, Rebecca.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. We're coming to the end of the April showcase, and I'm just so happy that I can, celebrate you and your work today, because I just was so moved by your film, and I think you were the best recipient for this Phenomenal Woman Award. So yeah, we'll just start, talking about what brought you into filmmaking.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your kind words and the award and everything. I was so happy to receive, especially that award.
Yes.
Because it is about women, right? And that my film, A Morning, a Mother and a Boy, is very much about being a woman and a mother.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so thanks a lot for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
What drew me to filmmaking? Well, I think as a child, actually, right from the beginning, I was photographing a lot. It was still photography. I didn't do video, and back then, it wasn't digital. So I was taking a lot of photographs, printing them, making photo albums, and in a way, creating my own little stories in that way, right? So putting photos in albums, organizing, and making a story, writing, small texts underneath. So that was, I guess, the beginning of my filmmaking in a way.
Yeah.
And then throughout all, high school, I always chose, the extra film course. When I started studying anthropology, I was, I think that's a great way of getting into documentary filmmaking, because it's all about people and cultures, right. and the methodology is very relevant for making documentary films, right? So when I studied anthropology, I also chose a lot of visual anthropology courses, and in that way, slowly went into it and did more and more practical filmmaking as well. And yeah, so that was sort of my way into it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that you studied something that kind of opened you into like filmmaking, like anthropology, which is really interesting to me. And so, yeah, okay, so that's great. And then what I was going to ask what brought you to A Mother, Morning, and a Boy, but I first wanted to talk about the school that you've been going to, and I'm probably going to mispronounce it, so I apologize, but École des Lettres. And can you talk about what brought you to that school and how it's inspired your work?
Well, École des Lettres is it's a pop-up film school, right? Based on the filmmaking approach of Jürgen Lett, and I was always a very big fan of Jürgen Lett. He's quite experimental in his way of filmmaking, and he's a poet, and he's a journalist, and he's a lot of different things. And he actually also studied anthropology.
Oh, okay.
So that was sort of also my connection in a way. But so when I saw this course, this film school advertised, I had to do it. It was sort of a once in a lifetime opportunity, I think. Yeah, so that was what made me attend that school.
Okay. And actually, I am curious, this is kind of a side question. I was reading your bio, and so it says here, Jorgen Leth is the grandfather of the Dharma Movement.
That's
and
right.
And the personal subjective documentary. Can you, this is just me being curious as a film geek, what is the Dharma Movement?
Well, the Dharma Movement is it all started, I think, with Jürgen in a way, and then it evolved into Lars von Trier, Thomas Winterberg, who's now been nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, that's right.
So he started, it was sort of a group of filmmakers wanting to try and do films in a different way, sort of cutting down to the core of filmmaking, right? So it was about simplifying a lot, and they applied a lot of rules to their filmmaking, so there were a lot of obstructions, and it was the same way we actually were taught at the École de Lettres. So every project we had to do, we had some obstructions. So for example, one project we had to do a documentary with one person, one object in one location.
Oh wow, yeah.
So that was the obstruction, right? And then and I think that in many ways it actually helps you as a filmmaker to get these obstructions, even though it's also difficult because you have to be creative, right? But I think it sort of ignites creativity in a way.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm a big fan of The Celebration. That film. Yeah, that's one of my tops. But I think it's so interesting, and I guess then we can kind of go into Mourning Mother and a Boy.
It's a long title.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's such a good title, and it says what it is,
Exactly.
So can you talk about what brought you to that film? So what brought you to that short film?
Well, there were two things. One thing was I was at the École de Lettres film school, and I was the final film project was approaching, and I was thinking a lot about what I was, what should I do, what kind of project should I do, and at the same time, because I was really, really busy doing this film school, and I wasn't so present at home, both physically, I was a lot away, and also mentally, I was learning a lot, and I had all these projects going. It was quite intensive, right? So my son reacted quite strongly to that by, for example, not wanting to go to kindergarten. So I thought, okay, maybe I should do something about that. And I started off sort of, I don't know, it was just an idea, So one morning he just kept going, I don't want to go to kindergarten. I don't want to go to kindergarten. He said it like maybe 20 times in a row. So I started filming him doing it. I know it seems a bit cruel in a way, but it was sort of a way of also dealing with it. And it kept on for a while, and at one point I asked him, I said, Silas, should we make a film about you not wanting to go to kindergarten? And he said, yeah, he wanted to do that.
That's great.
And so it was sort of, and then at the same time, I also, because it was this school, I was applying some obstructions to my final project. And so one of the obstructions I actually thought was that I had to find the story within my own four walls. So this was the story I found.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. And then I really think, is it Silas or Silas?
Silas. Yeah.
Silas.
Yeah.
And we talked about this in the interview, the written interview we did for Cinema Femme, just how he's just a natural on screen. And you talked about, you know, the cinematographer was kind of, you know, he helped a lot during the process to bring, you know, the best out of Silas. And I wanted to hear about, you know, that process working with your son, and also just the cinematographer just capturing him in the best way, especially that window at the end where he's looking at you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I guess he actually wanted to participate, so that made it a lot easier. And he was very patient about it, and he had a lot of fun doing it. And I think that was sort of quite an important part of it, because I couldn't have forced this. I mean, this had to be natural, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that there were parts where I directed him where we were sort of playing. For example, when he was putting on his clothes. You know, we did that quite a few times to do all the right shots, and so that was a part where he was very patient and he played along. And then, you know, there was sort of a balance, right? Because you also had to stop while it was still fun, so it didn't become like a pressure thing,
right?
So that was one part. Then I think that Dror Kaczynski, who was the cinematographer, he was very good with Silas as well. He was playful, you know, but at the same time, not too much, because of course he should not interact with him, right?
Right. That makes sense.
To be natural. So there were a few issues where, you know, he was becoming a little bit too friendly with him. So Silas would like walk, if he was walking in front of the camera, you know, he would turn around and go, "Oh, where is he?" You know, of course there were a lot of things we had to cut out because of that. But that was just, you know, part of the process.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, honestly, that one shot, and we talked about this in the written interview, the one where he's looking at you while you're going away from the school, is one of the best shots I've seen. Like it, and can you talk about that shot? Because
that shot was actually probably one of the reasons I made the film, because that was the image for me of that film. Because that's a window where every morning we had to say goodbye, and that was the window of, you know, the separation, the all the guilt of the mother of having to go somewhere else and leaving him, even though he didn't want to be there at that point, right? He didn't want to say goodbye, and so it's a window that's been present in my mind for a long time, and so that was the shot.
It was just beautifully captured, and it just said so much. And then also, you know, you being in the film, I thought was amazing. Like, first of all, just being like your real like morning self, like waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror. And I just thought it was so brave to just bring this realness. I mean, you putting yourself in the film and in a real way. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that, you know, if you want to be part of a film, which for me, I actually did not particularly want to be in front of the camera. It's not something that I ever sort of really wanted. But I guess it gives you an opportunity of making something very, you know, personal and authentic. And it was, you know, the morning, you know, I set up the camera in the morning in the bedroom. I got up before the kids woke up, and they were sleeping in the bed. And, you know, everything was sort of authentic in that way. And I felt that I had to be authentic as well, right? And I had to sort of, all vainness had to sort of go in that sense, because, you know, it had to be real.
Yeah.
And then I think also, I mean, part of it was also an exercise in a way, because as a documentary filmmaker, you're constantly, you know, portraying other people and other people's vulnerabilities, other people's, you know, all sides, right? So I think that in a way you owe those people to put yourself in front of the camera as well. And I think all documentary filmmakers should really do that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you have to feel it on yourself in a way to be able to know what it's like for the subjects.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just going to say, I appreciate that so much. And a question that I actually did not send you ahead of time, but a question that I ask most of the filmmakers that I interview, I think is relevant is, what do you hope people see in this film, A Mourning a Mother and a Boy, but also just your work in general?
I think in this film particularly, it's very much about, you know, seeing the nuances and being able to see. I wanted to portray the role of the mother as being not just, you know, you want to look after your child, but you also have other ambitions in life than being a mother. And this split, in a way, this dilemma is something that I find important to portray, because I don't think you see it that much, you know. It's I guess the whole idea of the good mother, I think that's what I wanted to sort of question. What is a good mother?
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I mean, I think what you're doing is great. I actually recently interviewed a filmmaker. Her name is Chris Ray. She did a film called Unexpected, which is about a woman who gets pregnant and she's figuring out like what she's going to do in terms of her career. Like, is she going to stop working? Is she going to keep working? And she shows like the birth on screen, and she did her research beforehand. She could not find a birth on screen that was portrayed like by a female director from a female perspective. Like it was always like male direct. I mean, there's probably movies out there, but the ones that she found were from a male perspective of a woman having birth, rather than the woman who's had birth, like having that perspective. So I see kind of a similar parallels between you two, just because I think it's great to have that female gaze, that female perspective on something that is a woman situation, you know?
Exactly.
So yeah, and I don't know, you kind of went into it when I asked you, what do you hope people see in your films? But could you talk about kind of what motherhood, like bringing motherhood to screen, and what you're trying to represent? You kind of went into that, but I just wanted to like talk about, because I haven't seen on screen what you've done.
No.
Yeah.
I think you actually hit the spot in a way, because I think that there are too few female directors in general. So that means that motherhood is not portrayed accurately, you know?
Right.
It's got so many nuances, and there are, you know, you are feeling split in a lot of different ways, you know, in your ambitions, in your caretaking role, in your, you know, in a lot of places in life. I think you know, you go through these dilemmas, and I think you sort of, it's important that it's a woman who actually portrays this.
Yeah. Agreed. And because if you don't see these stories on screen, you just don't feel like you're represented, and you're representing, which I love that. Yeah, and then going to my next question is, I'm curious what's coming up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, right now I'm working on a new project, which is my main focus. I also have some other projects, but my main project right now is I'm still researching, I'm still casting, so I can't talk too much about it. But it's still about motherhood. It's I want to do a longer documentary about this and about a family, and the role of the mother. I'm a little bit, I don't know how much I can say.
Yeah, that's okay. And is this, you might have said this, is it a documentary or is it,
yes,
is it okay.
A documentary.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited.
It's a documentary about a family, but in particular, focusing on the role of the mother. So it's sort of a continuing from this film. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so glad you're continuing with that theme.
It is a theme that I find so important. So I really want to go in more in depth, Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And then I do have my final question, and we could circle back to other things if you'd like to discuss more. But I feel like, so a lot of our readers are female filmmakers just starting out, and they're hoping to get wisdom from filmmakers that have really gone through it. And I feel like you probably, what advice would you have for these filmmakers that are just starting out, specifically, I guess, female documentarians that are wanting to just go at it? What advice would you have for them?
I think it's actually just to go at it. I mean, I think that's something, because I think it's so important to just go out and do it, go out and do it, and don't, and I think, start simple. Don't try to describe, the whole world situation, start with the details, start describing some smaller parts of the world, I think that's something that's, I think, makes it easier if you sort of limit yourself in a way and start small and just do it a lot.
Yeah.
Go out, do a lot of things.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's the advice I get a lot for filmmakers. Just do it.
Yeah.
Don't wait for that big budget. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that easy, but in a way it is. You could do it with anything. Get an iPhone, if you have an iPhone, go out, do a film. You could do it with anything, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I'm done with my questions that I prepared, but was there anything you wanted to add about your filmmaking experience, or something you've learned along the way, or just any comment on today's landscape of female filmmakers?
I think that one thing that I really want to, and that's why I want my next film to be about a family, is that I think we lack stories about families, about being a family, documentaries at least, right?
Yeah.
I think often documentaries have to be about something bigger, about maybe climate change, about bigger issues. But in a way, I feel that we need to also look at the, smaller, family, what's happening in everyday life. I mean, I think that's very interesting to portray everyday life in a maybe more poetic way, taking it seriously, because this is what we live, right?
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
So I feel that's, those stories sort of lack, and they lack from a female perspective as well. So I hope that more women will go out and do that.
Yes. Really appreciate you coming on, and I'm just really excited about what you're doing and your work, and I'd love to do some kind of follow-up with you later. And thanks for coming today.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
It's a real pleasure being part of the Cinema Femme showcase.
Yes.